Ben McKee, Patrick Brown with GoVols 24/7 here following day number 7 of Tennessee Fall Camp. A lot going on before Tennessee's first scrimmage of camp tomorrow night at Neyland Stadium. Josh Heupel will speak afterwards. In the meantime, Kelsey Pope spoke today, Chaz Nimrod spoke as well, and a couple of tight ends. All three of the primary tight ends, Miles Kitselman, Ethan Davis, and Holden Stays, all spoke as well. Before we get to what they spoke about, what was your biggest takeaway from practice number 7 this morning outside? Another sunny morning, thankfully, here in Knoxville, and the second day in full pads.
Well, Ben, I'll go with one positive and one negative. The positives, it looked like Andre Carrick was back doing pretty much everything during individual drills. He's been limited the past 2 or 3 practices. Obviously, I think he's a big factor in that left guard competition. So if he's able to get through practice today and scrimmage tomorrow night, that would be helpful for his case of being the 5th and rounding out the starting 5 on the offensive line. The negative is the passing game did not look sharp at all early in practice. There was a drill where they were throwing passes to the flats, to the running backs, and it was hilariously bad. I mean, bad throws, overthrows. I think there was a one-hopper or 2. I mean, these aren't like long throws either, and when the ball did get there, the running backs didn't do a great job of catching it. Some guys off the hands, some guys through the hands. Wasn't a very good drill, and the goal line routes on air when they went outside with the receivers and tight ends was a little bit better, but not much. A lot of balls on the ground, a lot of guys not getting their feet in bounds with some of the fades they worked on. So they could have torn it up after we left, but from what we saw, it did not get off to a great start.
No, and we did see a couple of nice catches, though, from Squirrel White, Chaz Nimrod, Holden Stays. Speaking of the receivers, spoke to Kelsey Pope afterwards, as I mentioned. There seems to be, I don't know that I would call it a competition, but Squirrel White and Chaz Nimrod there in the slot both seem to be in a really, really healthy position going into the season.
Yeah, and Kelsey Pope talked about that, needing to keep Squirrel healthier, keep him fresh, not have to make him play 85-90% of the snaps like he was kind of forced into last year. I mean, he's not the biggest guy. He's not getting the ball on every play, but there's still a physical toll that it takes on a player like him, and so they can keep him fresh, keep him fast to be a problem later in games, to be a problem later in the season. That can help, and that's where I think the growth of Chaz Nimrod will help Tennessee as he tries to push to get a role as a guy that, we'll see if, again, Tennessee should be able to rotate more receivers, but the key for every coach is when you put those other guys in, how much of a drop-off there is, and I think Nimrod is certainly, closing the gap and at least kind of getting closer to where Squirrel is, to where they don't have to worry about that when he's on the field.
Yeah, 3 other quick things from Kelsey Pope that stood out to me. Nathan Laycock is in a much better situation. 12 to 13,000 passes caught
a lot last offseason too.
Yes, and hopefully at some point that comes to fruition on the playing field. Obviously, he needs to stay healthy as well. Brew McCoy, Kelsey Pope said he's one of the best leaders he's ever been around, coach or player. And then Dante Thornton Jr., a year after transferring in from Oregon, is just in a totally different spot mentally and obviously in a good way.
Yeah, the way that Kelsey said it is, Dante's kind of said, I'm just going to go to work and let the chips fall where they may, whereas last season he was putting pressure on himself. Now, and to be fair to him, some of the expectations were put on by his coaches, talking him up from day 1 from February after he got here and how he was going to help replace Jalen Hyatt and all that stuff. And so that's been the biggest difference with Dante, is he's just more confident, he's just looser, he's feeling better about himself. To Brew, we'll see how much he does in a scrimmage. I think he looks good out there. I think he looks pretty good running around. I mean, the reaction when he makes his first catch against Chattanooga is going to be pretty cool to see, just the way he reacts, the way the crowd reacts. That can be something that people can look forward to. And Leacock, again, as you talked about, this is a guy who's a top 100 recruit. Can he stay healthy has been the biggest question, but I don't think the work ethic has ever been an issue, but he's been healthier and he's been showing more things this camp than he has really even last season or especially in spring when he really wasn't out there that much.
Yeah, speaking of health, the tight end room, there's a healthy competition, and I think it's going to be a really healthy part of this football team. I think all 3, Miles Kitselman, Holden Stays, Ethan Davis, who all spoke, as I mentioned, were all very complimentary of one another and spoke about how they don't really view it as a competition because there's not one guy that's just going to play 80 snaps a game, as Miles Kitselman said. Everybody's going to play, and so they need to help each other. And Ethan Davis talked about how Miles Kitselman is already one of his best friends, so it's a really tight, close-knit group. And I think it's going to be a real weapon for this offense this season. I think they all complement each other really, really well.
Yeah, and talking to Ethan Davis, who, he was a former top 247 recruit, big time, played with Travis Hunter, a couple other guys down in Atlanta, was a basketball player coming up. he probably came off his redshirt year and thought, okay, second year I'm gonna make a move. Then Tennessee brings in 2 transfers. Didn't take it personally. Understood it's a business, and all those 3 of those guys, as you said, Ben, have embraced each other. They're able to help each other. I mean, Kitzelman's kind of a blocker type, or that's the reputation he came in with. He's maybe been better catching passes, running routes, but he's leaned on Ethan Davis to help him with that side of the game because Ethan Davis is basically a wide receiver in high school, whereas Davis has leaned on those other guys to help him with the experience that they've gotten. So it's a good group in there. The way Ethan Davis, who wants to be a chef, by the way, loves to cook some stuff up. Culinary studies is his minor, so that's an interesting little storyline there. But the way he said it is, he views those guys as a big 3, and they're all kind of one big group, and it's going to be tough to stop. That's what he said. And we've seen Tennessee play tandems with Jacob Warren and Princeton Fant, and then last year it was Warren and McCallum Castles. Will they be able to find roles for 3 guys? Probably over the course of the season they will. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but certainly they've got 3 guys that they really like, and those 3 guys seem to have a good connection there in that room.
Scrimmage number 1 of camp tomorrow night. One thing that you'd like to hear coming out of it?
Running backs. Let's see what they can do. So hopefully they can catch the ball a little better. But can they pick up blocks? Can they get the tough yards? Can they make some plays? Not going to be probably a lot of holes against that defense with that defensive line, but if they can keep the run game moving pretty well and hit some big plays, I think that'd be a good sign for that group that still has some question marks. We saw Dylan Sampson today. That was maybe another takeaway. It was a knee brace. It wasn't a big knee brace. He's still moving around all right, but they're going to obviously probably be pretty cautious with him the rest of camp, I would think.
As they should. I'd like to hear that the offensive line is holding their weight a little bit against that stout defensive line, and I think everybody would like to hear some good things about the secondary as well.
And the quarterbacks. Yeah, we need to hear some Nico stuff too. Let's see if he tore it up.
Yeah, there's a lot that we would like to hear about, and we will hear about, and we'll have it all covered for you at GoVols247.com tomorrow night. Again, Josh Heupel speaking around 9 p.m. Eastern following scrimmage number 1, and we'll have all the coverage you need at GoVols247.com. He's Patrick Brown. I'm Ben McKee.